There we go. All right. Formal welcome to Daily Power Parsha. Just so you know, I started recording, so hence the formal welcome. All right. This is Genesis chapter 29, verse number 1, second reading, Torah portions of Vayeitzei. So here, Jacob's journey continues. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to read some verses and then fill in some commentary and insights, and it's a wild journey. Okay, so now Jacob lifted his feet and went to the land of the people of the east, B'nai Kedem. Went to not Kedem grape juice, but Kedem east. Now, so Jacob lifted his feet. I mentioned at the end, the last thing I mentioned in yesterday's DPP was that the notion of lifting his feet indicates a sense of joy and positivity and exuberance amidst the unknown, even though he doesn't know what's ahead. He doesn't know how things are going to play out. But with Hashem's promise, he is encouraged to continue on that journey. All right, verse 2. And he looked. So he arrives now in Haran. Let me just fill in the info. He looked, and behold, a well in the field. And behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it, because from that well they would water the flocks. And a huge rock was upon the mouth of the well. So he arrives in this new place. He's never been there before. He arrives in this new place, and he sees there's a well, and there's sheep, and there's a rock on the well, and it seems like nothing's happening. Verse 3, and the flocks would gather there, and they would roll the rock off the mouth of the well and water the sheep. And then they would return the rock onto the mouth of the well to its place. So basically, this well had a massive, huge rock / boulder that they would put on top to block up the well. Now, why do they block up the well? There's various reasons that are offered, maybe to protect the integrity of the well or protect to keep people from taking more than they should, so that it was a shared experience of when everyone would take at the same time. Either way, there was this rock, massive rock on the well. Verse 4. So Jacob is seeing this now for the first time because he's the new visitor. So Jacob said to them, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. So now he knows he's in the right place. Remember, this is in an age before GPS. It's even before AAA. So he didn't have any maps, no navigation. He was just heading east. So he arrives, he sees this well in the field, he sees these shepherds and the flocks. So he says, hey guys, tell me, where are you from? And they say Haran. And now he knows that he's in the right place. Verse 5, and he said to them, do you know Laban or Lavan, the son of Nachar? And they said, yeah, we know him. By the way, Laban's father was not Nachar. It was name was Besuel, right? Why is he called Nachar? Nachar is, I believe, the Zayder, the Elter Zayder, like one of the grandfathers in the family. So do you know Laban? Yeah. Verse 6. And he said to them, are things going well with him? And they said, so he's trying to get information, snoop out information in the family. And they said, yes, things are going well. And behold, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. So not only do we know Laban, not only is he doing okay, but if you want to meet a member of the family, his own daughter Rachel is now approaching with the sheep. Now, we discussed this a few weeks ago, the Torah portion where Eliezer is looking to find a shidduch. Eliezer is looking to find a match for Yitzchak, and he goes and he makes a deal and he makes a promise and things work out also by a well. But here he knows he's looking for the family. He knows he's looking for mishpacha. And what happens? Who does he find? He finds Rachel, the daughter, is now approaching with the sheep. Let's continue. Verse 7. And he said, the day is yet long. It is not the time to take in the livestock, water the sheep, and go pasture. In other words, what Jacob was telling the other shepherds is, why are you guys all collecting by the well? Why don't you just give your sheep to drink and go back out into the field? Like, why are you all congregated here for a while? What's going on? And they told him essentially what I kind of mentioned before about the rock. Verse 8, and they said, we cannot do that until all the flocks are gathered together, and they will roll the rock off the mouth of the well, and we shall then water the sheep. In other words, we would love to give our sheep the water and go back out into the field, but we don't have enough manpower to move the rock on top of the well. Right? I hope this makes sense. I can't see anybody, but I'm hoping this makes sense. Right? He says, why are you guys just wasting time? Give them water and get back to the field. And they said, because we can't give them water because we can't physically move the rock off the top of the well without everybody together. Verse 9, while he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Okay, she was the family shepherdess. So she's coming now with the sheep. Verse 10, and here we have love at first sight. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and he saw the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob drew near and rolled the rock off the mouth of the well, and he watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. So what happens? You have these stories about, God forbid, somebody's in danger, somebody's under a car, and a mother's able to lift up the car off the child. God forbid, right? If right? But you read these stories of superhuman strength. Well, we just had that. We just had an episode of superhuman strength. And what's a superhuman strength? It's this it's rolling the rock off the well single-handedly. Jacob sees Rachel, he sees the sheep, and he says, that's it. I'm gonna show off my strength, and he rolls the rock off the top. I'm going to share with you an insight on that soon from the commentaries, but let's continue the story. And Jacob, verse 11. Remember, it's mishpacha, it's cousins, okay. And Jacob, but it's also, as we know, his future wife. And Jacob kissed Rachel, and he raised his voice and wept. Why did he weep? I'm going to give you a few basic explanations. Number one, he wept, according to some commentaries, because unlike Eliezer, who also went to find a wife for Yitzchak, and he went and traveled and was by a well also, unlike Eliezer, who came with camel loads of wealth and gifts, Jacob came penniless. He actually came without anything. According to one rendition of the story, he actually left home with a lot of stuff. But Esau, his twin brother, sent his own son, Esau's own son, to kill him, to kill his uncle, i.e., Jacob. And when Jacob was confronted by his own nephew, who was going to kill him on behalf of his father, Jacob said, you know what? Just take all my stuff, and if you render me penniless, it's like I'm dead. So he agreed. He took all of his possessions, and he let him live. Either way, there are other versions of the story of why Jacob didn't have any gifts or any money or any possessions, but that's one version of the story. It's maybe the most dramatic version. Either way, according to one commentary on verse 11, the reason why he wept is because he knew that he didn't have anything to give her. That's on a basic level. On a deeper level, he wept because he had a prophecy that they would not be buried together. Rachel is buried not in the Ma'aras Machpelah, not in the cave Machpelah. She's buried in the language of the Torah, on the side of the road. There's the tomb of Rachel on the side of the road. I think it's by Bethlehem, I believe. So that's where she is buried, but not in the cave, and they would not be buried together. So according to one tradition, that's why he wept here. Verse 12. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Okay, so now the family is making the connections. Verse 13. Now it came to pass, when Laban heard the report of Jacob, his sister's son, in other words, he heard that he was here, that he ran towards him, and he embraced him, and he kissed him, and he brought him into his house. And then Jacob told Laban all these happenings. Now, just to clarify, Laban is the uncle. Now, we understand him to be a fellow from the beginning, from the previous story of Eliezer. He was a guy who was always looking for the cash. So according to the commentaries, why did he run toward him? Why did he embrace him? Why did he kiss him? He wanted to pat him down to feel the money and the jewelry. So he runs out, right? First thing he runs out. He doesn't see anything. So he figures, okay, maybe it's in his pockets. So he embraces him. He hugs him. He feels the pockets. Nothing. So then he figured maybe he's hiding the gems in his cheek, in his mouth. So he kissed him. Now, I don't know, I'm not going to get too graphic as to how he might have ascertained whether or not he was smuggling, jewelry in his cheeks, but either way, he went to check and verify and see if there was, where he was hiding the stash of gelt, but there was none to be found. All right, and then Jacob told Laban all these happenings about the journey, about his life, etc. All right, verse 14. Indeed, sorry, and Laban the uncle said to him, his nephew, indeed, you are my bone and flesh, my bone and my flesh. And so he stayed with him a full month. And Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you work for me gratis? Tell me what your wages shall be. So essentially, Jacob is staying by his uncle and he begins doing work. So Laban says, if you're working, what do you want? What do you want in return? Verse 16. Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were tender, but Rachel had beautiful features and a beautiful complexion. All right, that is how the opening of this meeting story and the marriage story begins. Okay, let me check in with you all. Let me stop sharing for a second and check in and share an insight to boot. Okay, can you guys see me again? Hey, good to see you all. All right, so story makes sense so far? Yes? Thumbs up? Okay, I want to share with you an insight. Okay, good. On the rock. So, there was this rock that no one could move, and they had to wait till all the shepherds, and it was inefficient, and talk about lack of productivity because you have to wait for everybody to gather. And I gave you rationales as to why it was done in such a way to protect them from each other, to protect from I don't know, animals or poisons or whatever. Okay, various strategies to why the well had to be covered. But there is a commentary that I love, and the commentary talks about why it is that Jacob could roll the rock off the well and no one else could. Now, typically we think of it as a miracle, or as I mentioned before, like lifting the car off the child, God forbid, right? Superhuman strength, a superhero moment. That's typically how we say it, a jolt of adrenaline, whatever. But there's one commentary that says something very beautiful and psychological, a truth. Sometimes we condition ourselves to believing that we can't do something. And because we tell ourselves again and again and again that we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it, so that ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we actually can't do it. I mean, we could, but because we think we can't, so at least we don't. I'm not going to say we can't, but as long as we're stuck, we can in that mindset. So sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes to see an old problem through a new lens to find a solution. There's an old Jewish parable or teaching that says, why is it that in a circus, and I'm not for or against circuses, I'm not taking a stance about circuses, I know it's complicated, but why is it, or how is it that you can have this massive elephant who's being led around by a small, being held by a small string, and the elephant in a moment could rip the whole thing. So how does that? So the answer that's given, at least from this, this drash, this teaching, is that when the elephant was young, when it was a baby, it was held by the string or by the rope, and it learned that it couldn't defeat the rope, and then it gave in. It defined the rope as something too strong, too formidable to break. And so then even when it got older and it developed all the strength and power, it kept the mindset of, I can't break this rope, I can't break through. And how true is this in life, where whether it's when we were younger, or whether it's we're older, or whether because of this incident or that trauma, however it happened, there's a lot of things that we tell ourselves, or we condition ourselves to believe that things are a certain way. And the reality is, we know that they need not be that way. or maybe we don't know, but we need to know that they don't need to be that way. And it's just about telling ourselves, believing a different set of beliefs, and believing that we can, that will help us get through the obstacle. So bring it back to the story. All of the other shepherds believe that the only way to roll the rock off the well is when everyone gathers together. And Jacob said, that's a terrible mindset. I have a different mindset that we can do, that I can do it. And he did it. So again, this is one commentary that I've seen in the past that says it wasn't a miracle and it wasn't adrenaline. It was a different belief, a belief in being able to do it, and that's how he was able to do it. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Now, I'm not advocating, listen, I'm not saying that if you believe you can lift up a mountain, then you should be able to do it. No problem, because it's just a lack of belief. I understand that certain things are beyond even belief, on a literal level. But this is one commentary and one perspective on that. All right, questions or comments on this first part? Yeah, Donna.
So yesterday we learned about the stones, right? First they were sleeping with the stones, then the stones became one, then they become
Yes.
a magical edifice, and now we're learning about the rock. So is there any connection? Is there any special significance?
It's a great question. I didn't think of it, and I don't know. As I'm thinking about your question, I can't recall a direct correlation between the 12 stones, or the stones that he put around his head initially that turned into one stone that he offered as the matzeva, as the what did they call it? The monument or the altar, and the stone that he rolled off. I don't know. Clearly, he was.
It's interesting that, right? One portion after the other, there's a significance of the stone.
Yes, and I think it's also significant that he had all these other stones, but no precious stones, as Laban was wondering, where are the precious stones?
Right.
Where are the diamonds? What's with all these rocks? Unbelievable. No, but you're right. There's probably some sort of connection. I would venture to say, because they are back to back, that somewhere in the 3,300 years of Torah scholarship, something's been written on. I would venture to say that something's been written on that. But
they weren't precious, but they were mystical, right?
They were definitely mystical. Yes. Okay, I want to do a little bit. Any other questions, comments? I'm looking around. Okay, I want to do a little bit more. Let's jump back into the reading. Let me share once again. All right. Let's do this. Okay. Here we go. Let me look at the Hebrew word. I'm still looking at the same reading. Evan. Yeah. In Hebrew, it's Evan, stone. Same word as used as the one used before regarding the stone that he put around his head.
Thank you.
All right. And he even just said, I mean, in the few verses right before this, at the end of the first reading, he said, remember, he made the deal with God, like, if you are with me and if you protect me and if you bring me back to my father's house, then, what's the then? That was the final verse of the first reading. He says, then this stone I'll build into a house for God, right? That's what he said. Evan Azot, this stone. Anyway, so definitely a stone connection probably somewhere. Definitely, probably. Okay, third reading, here we go. Genesis chapter 29, verse 18. And Jacob loved Rachel. Remember, we just left off with him moving into his uncle's home, and his uncle is there, is taking care of him, and he's working for him. And eventually, uncle says to nephew, "Let me give you something. What do you want? What's your recompense? What's your payment, so to speak?" And Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." He says, you don't need to pay me in money, but just consent to your daughter's hand in marriage. Let's see if there's a comment on Rashi. I will work for you 7 years. Rashi says, they are the few days of which his mother said, and you shall dwell with him for a few days. Okay, so when his mother said, go away for a few days, we said before, it doesn't mean days literally. So she meant about 7 years. So he said, okay, so I'll work for you 7 years and give me your daughter. Okay. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Rashi points out something interesting, but I want to go back to the verse. He says, I'll work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. He doesn't say for Rachel. Why does he say Rachel, your younger daughter? I mean, didn't Laban know who she was? Look at Rashi. For Rachel, your younger daughter. Why were all these signs or indications or descriptions necessary? Since he, Jacob, knew that he, Laban, was a deceiver, he said to him, I will work for you for Rachel. Unless you say that I meant another Rachel from the street. In other words, from another Rachel, scripture states your daughter. So not just Rachel, but your daughter Rachel. Now, lest you say, I will change her name to Leah, and I will name her Leah Rachel. I'm going to switch the name. So I'll call Leah Rachel and Rachel Leah. So scripture states, no, your younger daughter. So that says, Rachel bitcha haktana. I want to marry Rachel, not just any Rachel, your daughter Rachel, and not just your daughter Rachel's changed name, but really it's Leah, your youngest daughter, your younger daughter. Nevertheless, as Rashi points out, it did not avail him. It didn't help. For he, Laban, still deceived him. Anyway, so bottom line is, he tried to be specific, but when you're dealing with a Laban, it's still not going to work. You can only do your best. But he tried. You should know that the words in Hebrew, let's see if I can highlight them, and if it comes out. Yeah, maybe it comes out by you, as highlighted. So, Berachel bitcha haktana, so that is known to be a way when somebody, it's a not Talmudic, maybe a little bit Talmudic, but it's like a way of expressing oneself when one wants to specify, let's say in a contract, and specify all the details and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. So it's referred to as Baracha Bitcha Haktana. Like I'm leaving nothing up to chance, everything is being specified. This was Jacob trying to do that. It didn't work in his case, but Baracha Bitcha Haktana means when somebody is, it's a modern way of saying when somebody is really specifying every detail and not leaving things up to chance. All right, 19. And I don't know if you're seeing the messages that pop up. I'm getting a lot of WhatsApps, but my apologies for that if that's popping up. 19. And Laban said, in response to Jacob's proposal that he work and then he marry his daughter, he said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to another man. All right, stay with me. And as I mentioned in our Secrets of the Bible class a week or two ago, maybe last week, actually, what a compliment, right? All right, I guess you're better than the rest of the guys. I mean, not like, yes, what a wonderful idea, tremendous, we're mishpacha, and you're such a great guy. No, it's like, I guess it's better than anyone else. I love that. A very backhanded compliment. All right, verse 20. So Jacob worked for Rachel 7 years, but they appeared to him like a few days because of his love for her. So he worked for her, 7 years flew by. The commentators asked the question, it seems a little bit counterintuitive. Usually, if you're anticipating something, so a few days seems like a few years, right? Like time stretches longer when you're looking forward to something. Let's say you're looking forward to, I don't know, Thanksgiving weekend or Thanksgiving, and it's a month away. It's going to feel like forever. If you're the more you're looking forward to it, the more it will stretch and feel like it's taking so long. So how does it make sense? How does the logic make sense that he really loved her and he was looking forward to marrying her, and it was the 7 years appeared to him like a few days? How does that make any sense? Why would it be a few days? It would be longer than that. Anyway, the commentators say that that's only when it's about you, and it's about you, and it's selfish, and you feel like you want something, you want it. Then the longer it takes, the longer it feels, or even a few days could feel like a long time. But when it's about giving, or when it's about being there for the other, then it's not about you, and then we don't mix in our selfish feelings. So here, this was if this is the amount of time that she needed, or her father needed, or whatever. So it went by fast because of his love for her. This was true love. It wasn't selfish love. All right, verse 21. And Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are completed, that I may come to her. So in other words, let's get married. 7 years are up. So, verse 22, Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. What a guy. I mean, he knew what his plan was, but he's not a guy to do it secretly, small wedding. No, he's going to do it in front of everybody, right? Laban doesn't care. He's going to deceive in public. 23, and it came to pass in the evening that Laban took his daughter Leah, the older one, and he brought her to him, to Jacob, and he came to her. And Laban gave Zilpah, his maidservant, to his daughter Leah as a maidservant. And it came to pass in the morning, and behold, she, maybe that's the wrong tone, she was Leah, not Rachel. Now, everyone's wondering, so how come he didn't realize at the wedding or after the wedding? What's going on here? I don't know that I have a good answer. but I guess it has something to do with the veil and at night. And it says that Rachel had signs special, and Ray mentioned this in our previous class, Secrets of the Bible, last week, that Rachel had signs that she and Jacob had a communication, secret codes they were going to give each other to make sure that nothing that so that Jacob would be tipped off if anything was awry. Rachel gave these codes to Leah so as not to embarrass her, and Leah passed them along, and that's how Jacob went along with it and wasn't and didn't realize that he was deceived until the next morning. So it came to pass in the morning, and behold, she was Leah. So he said to Laban, "What is it that you've done to me? Did I not work for you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?" And Laban said, "It is not done so in our place to give the younger one before the firstborn. So we don't do that. I know we talked about Rachel, but bottom line is, you married Leah because she's the older daughter, and that's how we roll here." All right. He said, though, to Jacob, complete the wedding week of this one. In other words, have your Sheva Brachot, have your week of celebration post-wedding, and we will give you this one too. And then you can marry Rachel as well. What a dad, huh? What a father-in-law, what an uncle. He says, all right, I gave you this one, so celebrate for a week, and then you can marry the younger daughter as well. For the work that you will render me for another 7 years. So, but this one I'm going to advance you, right? So the first wedding came after 7 years of work. This time, just wait 7 days. You'll marry Rachel, my younger daughter as well, the sister, and then you're still on the hook then for another 7 years after that. 28. And Jacob did so. I mean, at this point, what's his choice? He did so, and he completed the week of this one, and he gave his daughter, and Laban gave his daughter Rachel to Jacob as a wife. And Laban gave his daughter Rachel, his maidservant Bilhah, for a maidservant. And verse 30, and he came also to Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah, and he worked with him another 7 years. Okay, I want to stop our discussion today here, because we're going to get into the birth of the tribes, or the sons that would become the 12 tribes. From verse 31, we read about pregnancies and births, and I want to focus on that tomorrow. We'll focus on that in our in-person and virtual combo DPP. It should be nice weather, by the way, tomorrow for those that are attending in person. Don't forget to call Spicy Peach. Place your food orders. We'll have it ready. But tomorrow we'll get into the birth of the tribes, the significance of their names, and talk about the drama, the family dynamics of Jacob marrying two sisters. I'm actually, you know what? I actually want to begin tomorrow with the question: how could Jacob marry two sisters? It's against Jewish law, and it seems to be a little bit tricky, a little bit of a tricky situation to marry two sisters on many different levels. It creates a bit of a rivalry. Anytime there's multiple spouses, even if, back in the day when that was maybe a thing or maybe not a thing, we don't find that the other patriarchs had other wives. I mean, Abraham had only to give birth with Hagar, and then when his wife Sarah died, he remarried. But we don't find multiple wives being a thing in the Bible, in the 5 books of Moses. Moses didn't have multiple; it just wasn't a thing. Jacob has multiple wives, and they're sisters, and that seems to create a very complicated dynamic. Tomorrow we'll get into some of the commentaries on that, but just to recap today what we did. So today we spoke about the meeting at the or Jacob's approaching the well, his meeting at the well, his meeting the shepherds, rolling the rock off. That's where Rolling Rock comes from. Kidding. Rolling Rock comes from Pennsylvania, I believe Latrobe, right outside of Pittsburgh. Anyway, so we read about the meeting with Rachel. He falls in love with her, and he wants to marry her. He works for 7 years, and we spoke about why that flew by so fast, because it wasn't about him. It was true love. It wasn't selfish love. And then we spoke about the wedding and the deception. A lot of deception here. Deception last week. Deception this week. Siblings pretending to be siblings. It's complicated. But there's a lot of themes. All right, good. Any questions, comments? Jump in. We covered today the story, and not a lot of insights or depth insights, a little bit, but not comprehensively. Tomorrow we're going to pick it up with more insights. All right. Any other questions or comments? for now. Nope. All right.
Do we have
Yes.
Parasha outside tomorrow?
Yes. DPP tomorrow outside, 12 noon. In person, I checked the weather yesterday. It was supposed to be like 69, 70 degrees, so it should be nice. I hope it's still supposed to be nice. Either way, bring a jacket, whatever, if need be. We have the tent set up. We'll have the stuff set up. Order from Spicy Peach. We'll have the food there for you. And yeah, or join us online. Either way, it works. All right. I think that's it.
Good.
Awesome.
When he moves the rock, I forget, is it before seeing Rachel or after?
After seeing her. We saw her approach, and he's like, I'm going to be the guy that wants to marry you, so let the first impression be big, right? Let the first impression be very bold. I mean, it was definitely a good first move. I must say, better than an opening line like, hey, come here often. This is like a much smoother move to kind of like get her attention than anything else that, anyone could script.
So is there any commentary that it can be love? Because apparently it was like a strong love at first sight. That gave him some special power.
Is it written in the commentaries about that? I mean, I imagine, I'm going to say yes, even though I can't tell you which commentaries. I'm sure that's kind of like a straightforward understanding is that he saw her, he fell in love. He was, he loved her immediately at first sight. And he's like, that's it. Taking off this rock. We're making it happen. Something chivalrous, something dynamic, something dramatic. That's I think that's like a classic understanding of it. That's kind of like the adrenaline understanding.
Yeah, adrenaline. Yeah.
How old was she?
Sorry?
Well, we're told she was 3 years old, but how old was she really?
No. Rebecca, according to some commentaries, Rebecca was 3.
Yes.
Rachel would have been older.
I'm talking about Rebecca. Oh, well, never mind. I'm thinking up my stories. Forget it.
That's the previous generation. But even that 3, according to many, many commentaries, she was older than 3. So 3 creates a problematic understanding of the story, which is why we can go with the other commentaries, even though 3 people know about, but that's it's by no means the only understanding of how old Rebecca was. But Rachel, I don't know how old Rachel was, but there's no indication that she was particularly young. Yeah.
Right.
She was a shepherdess. She was doing her thing. All right, good. So I think that's it. See you guys tomorrow. Tonight, don't forget, tonight, for those of you that are Secrets from the Bible. So we're doing the JLI class, lesson 5, about the broken tablets. The online version is tonight. The in-person one is next Thursday because of Thanksgiving. But we're doing the online one tonight. And you can always mix and match. If you want, you can jump in tonight and next Thursday. Whatever. I don't mind. You can always learn twice. All right. We'll see you guys. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for connecting today.
Of course. Only happy occasions. All right. Take care.